A simple butter container will turn into a spectacular piece. The first thing I do is measure and cut out 2 pieces of cardboard, which I glue together with white wood glue, so that they are the right height to make a lid. After spreading the white wood glue, I need to check that the 2 parts are perfectly aligned. If the lid is crooked, we won't be able to make the kind of decoration I've chosen for this set. I mix paint with white glue and plaster of Paris to help the paint adhere well to the plastic. I use about the same amount for each ingredient and stir very well until it's smooth. When I have the mixture ready, I get a kind of homemade primer that adheres well to all difficult surfaces, not just plastic. I apply small touches with a sponge to create a more delicate texture than I could with a brush. After painting the outside, you need to let the paint dry so that you can hold the box while you paint the inside. After 2 coats, I have the box completely painted. I use practically everything to make the textures for my projects. Any disposable packaging that has a pattern, like this plastic tray, works for me to make the base of my decoration. To make it easier, I completely remove the edge, and end up with a kind of plastic sheet. This way, I quickly and easily achieve a texture that would be much more difficult to create in any other way. And as I use packaging both to make structures and decorations, I can recycle a lot of packaging in each project, limiting the use of other materials that would be more expensive. I'm going to apply toilet paper with white glue on the back to get a more rigid and firm surface. I first apply the paper with my hands, making small touches so that it adheres to the cardboard, and then I use a wide brush to apply glue on top. I carefully apply a few light strokes and don't press too hard, as the paper is very fragile and can tear easily. We do the same with the sides, but, as you can see, it is very difficult to apply the glue and paper with the bottom of the lid still wet, so, to make things easier, we must let the bottom dry first, so that we can hold the lid easily while we apply the paper to the sides. On one side, the one that is less perfect, I apply hot glue and a piece of fabric that I cut to size. Using the hot gun nozzle helps the glue to melt and enter the fabric itself. I place the fabric so that there is no excess on the top of the lid, but on the bottom. I apply the mixture with the sponge and insist to fill in all the cracks in the texture. I could just let the lid dry so I can handle it more easily, but I choose to use a hairdryer on cold to be quicker. I apply paint to the entire side, but on the fabric I only apply it to the part that is glued to the lid. I really like using die cutters to create ornamental elements. I use them with the most varied types of materials, which I choose according to the type of effect I want to achieve. In this project I will place the ornamental elements on surfaces that are not completely straight, and I will need to stretch or shrink the elements a little, which is why I choose to use EVA foam, due to its flexibility and malleability. I've made some EVA foam lace that I'm going to put all around the lid. Before I start gluing, I have to check the best position to put them in, so that the area where the lace joins is less noticeable. I start by applying the lace to the front, and, to make sure it's aligned, I fold it in half and apply a small drop of super glue. Carefully, I place it in the middle of the opposite side where we glued the fabric. I line up the bottom of the lace with the bottom of the lid, which means that what's left of the lace should overlap the top of the lid. We applied the lace all around the lid using white glue, but to prevent it from moving out of place and becoming crooked, we added 1 drop of superglue to each end. We will do the same with the 2 lace on the sides. First we applied a drop of super glue to the end and then used white glue along the entire lace. These two side lace will be joined above the fabric on the back of the lid, and we will use a small piece of tape to hold the end of one lace in place while we glue the other. The junction of the two lace is in the middle of the lid, so it may be necessary to stretch or shrink the lace by a millimeter or so to ensure that the union stays in place. When we think it's perfect, we use super glue on both ends at the same time to ensure they stay together. After we have glued the lace all around the lid, it is time to glue the excess lace on the top. I start by applying, with a brush, a very thin layer of super glue to the corners of the lace and glue it to the top of the lid, on the plastic surface. I then glue the sides, shrinking the EVA foam a little as it approaches the corners and thus avoiding overlapping lace in the corners, achieving a good finish on the lid. Before starting to decorate, I will finally join the lid and the box. I check exactly where we will glue the fabric that will be the hinge of the lid. I apply a generous amount of white glue, spreading it with a brush, and place the fabric on top, which I will insert into the groove of the box with the help of the brush. To prevent the lid from moving, I place 2 pieces of painter's tape to hold it in place and let it dry straight. I use the die cutting machine again to make a thinner lace with EVA foam that will help disguise the fabric that we glued to make the hinge. I'm going to apply super glue to the lace with a brush, and glue it into the groove around the box. First we apply it to the end of the lace, glue it, and only then apply and glue the rest of the lace. Just like we did for the lid, first we will glue the lace on the front and then we will glue the sides. I'm going to leave the 2 joints, the one on the lid and the one on the box, in exactly the same place. If necessary, use a sharp object to help you place the lace in the right place. This lace will help to disguise not only the fabric that will be the hinge but also the groove around the box. To decorate the box, I will also use decorative elements made with the die cutting machine. I cut several arabesques that I will glue on the box and on the lid. I will continue to use super glue because it is very fast and provides instant good results. The most important thing when using super glue for this type of work is to apply the glue gradually to ensure that the adhesion is in the right place. For larger elements, like this little bird, I apply glue along the entire length except for a small point, in this case, the legs, and then apply the motif in place. After gluing, I apply glue to the legs. I also make some cute EVA foam flowers that I will apply here and there throughout the box. For a 3D flower, I use a pointy object to shape the flowers and put a drop of super glue in the center and glue them together. This way, I can instantly get some super cute flowers that will make the box decoration even more romantic and beautiful. With a small brush I apply paint to the decorative elements, focusing more on the side areas, and then I dab it lightly with the sponge to remove the brush marks. There is no need to insist too much as the color of the EVA foam I chose is very similar to the paint and the elements quickly become well integrated. I have to let this layer dry well before I can use the dry brush technique. I'm going to apply this cyan in uneven strokes to give more depth to the piece by allowing the darker tone to concentrate closer to the elements. I apply white acrylic paint only in areas where the texture is most prominent. This is a technique used to highlight the reliefs and details of a surface. When we apply white acrylic paint only to the areas where the texture is most prominent, we create an effect of light and shadow that gives depth and visual interest to the piece, adding a touch of elegance and sophistication. To finish, I apply gold. If I had applied the gold without the white first, it would have been a darker and more faded tone. Over the white, I can light up the gold more, giving more beauty and glamour to this jewelry box. It's a shame that such a beautiful piece doesn't have a pair, so I decided to glue a coffee capsule to a glass bottle to make a candlestick. This 200 cubic centimeters bottle has a wide neck, where this type of capsules fit perfectly. I apply the homemade primer to the top of the candle holder. Only after drying do I apply it to the bottom. As the bottle thread is very visible, I cut a piece of cardboard the size of the thread. To fix the cardboard, I will use silicone glue, as when placing the cardboard the glue will fill the space between the threads, and as it is quite thick even after drying it will help provide a more uniform finish. I use a piece of painter's tape to keep the cardboard from moving out of place until the glue dries. Only after it is completely dry do I apply a coat of primer, dabbing lightly with the sponge until the cardboard is completely covered. I use the same decorative elements as the jewelry box to decorate this piece, but without reproducing exactly the same decoration. I measure the lace around the neck and mark the exact place where I need to cut. I again chose to use super glue, as its speed and efficiency are unmatched. As I did before, I apply the glue little by little to ensure the lace is aligned. Before gluing the last end, I carefully check that the lace is perfectly aligned and in the right place. This attention to detail is essential to guarantee an impeccable final result. When joining the two ends, I adjust it so that the union is almost imperceptible. At the top of the candlestick, just below the edge of the capsule, I apply an EVA foam lace all around. The objective is to disguise the edge as best as possible. The advantage of the EVA foam lace, approximately 2 mm high, is that it smooths the difference between the capsule and the edge, providing a harmonious finish. I place another similar lace in the lower part of the candlestick. Carefully, I check that everything is aligned correctly, ensuring that the joining of the lace is almost imperceptible. For a moment, I consider not doing any more decorating. However, I choose to apply arabesques, creating a different composition to the one I used in the jewelry box. To finish, I scatter some flowers, beautifying the candlestick even more. A few touches of the homemade primer on top of the elements ensure that they are fully integrated. Once again, I use a fine brush so that the paint reaches all the details, and a sponge to soften the texture. After letting it dry very well, we will then use several layers of paint to enhance the beauty of the pieces, creating an effect of depth and light that would not be possible with a single layer. I decided to use another plastic tray to create another piece of this set. This time I only removed the outer edge of the tray. These trays are quite malleable, so I decided to cut 2 cardboard circles slightly smaller than the tray. I apply the hot glue directly to the cardboard so as not to damage the plastic of the tray with the heat. Then stick the cardboard onto the tray using some pressure. I repeat the process with the other cardboard. When the hot glue cools, it will also help to give the piece more rigidity and resistance. As I did with the jewelry box, I apply 2 coats of the homemade primer with a sponge to achieve a more delicate texture. I insist more on the deeper textured areas to achieve a homogeneous painting. I start gluing the decorative elements as I did before. The idea is to provide visual coherence, without repeating exactly the same details that exist in the 2 pieces we made previously. I concentrate the decorative elements on one side to create a visually interesting and balanced focal point, surpassing the effect they would have if they were centered. The flowers are arranged from the focal point to the periphery, harmoniously integrating all the elements. Just like I did before, I will first paint the various elements so that they are fully integrated. I then apply the various layers of paint necessary to achieve the same effect of depth and glamour that we obtained previously. The meticulous color layering technique not only enriches the visual texture, but also highlights the intricate contours and details. Each brushstroke is designed to highlight the uniqueness of the piece, while the final application of gold serves to illuminate and add a touch of subtle elegance. The result is a work of art that captures the eye and invites reflection, a celebration of the art of transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. With the creative use of materials destined for recycling, we created a charming set that enhances the aesthetics and romanticism of our home. Each piece displays a romantic essence and nostalgic air, subtly echoing the shabby chic style. The deep blue palette with gold highlights gives the pieces an air of timeless sophistication, while embracing the beauty of imperfections and the charm of a time-worn look. Soon we will bring you another wonderful project. Until then, let your creativity flow with this one here.